We build investor audiences for small cap companies, retail and institutional. 33 years, thousands of clients. We are experts in messaging. National TV ad campaigns, investor webinars, digital media, reaching hundreds of thousands of investors. RedChip. We do it well, we do it right, we do it big. RedChip. Call us or email us today.
Safe Harbor Statement. This call may contain forward-looking statements within the meaning of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. All statements pertaining to future financial and/or operating results, along with other statements about the future expectations, beliefs, goals, plans, or prospects expressed by management, constitute forward-looking statements. Any statements that are not historical fact should also be considered forward-looking statements. Of course, forward-looking statements involve risks and uncertainties. I now turn this webinar over to Paul. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Craig, and thanks everyone for your interest in our company. I'm not sure about a prepared presentation. What I said I'll do is, after the new format we introduced a few months ago, is I'll give a few prepared remarks, then we'll go straight to Q&A as what the audience wants. So, in terms of what we are, what we do, we're a company that makes isotopes. So they're a very special form of chemical. And these chemicals are used in everything you touch every day. You won't know it, but they are. They're used every day. And there's only really two producers of isotopes. One is Rosatom, the Russian government, and the second is a company called Renergen in the UK, Germany. And so it's a very, very limited supply chain of these chemicals, and they're needed for many things we do in the world. And they're going to be needed for many other things we do in the world going forwards. And I got interested in this industry really as an investor, because I found shorting companies that needed isotopes was a great risk reward because they didn't have isotopes. And so it was pretty easy to trade. And so we created the company about 4 years ago to help solve this supply side or supply chain problem. And we built 3 plants in South Africa. They're all operational today. They should produce commercial products in the next several weeks. And we're looking forward to building more plants, basically. So that's what we do. In terms of our main achievements over the last 4 months, since we did our last webinar with you, Craig, I think, it's kind of self-explanatory, really. So first of all, we've commissioned 3 plants. All 3 are now up and running. All 3 should start producing commercial product in the next several weeks. And I must say hats off to our engineers who've done that. In 3 years, we've built 3 plants for under $40 million. That's an incredible feat, and that's a great job. What else we've done in the last several weeks? Well, we've signed a merger agreement with a company called Renergen, and we're going to hopefully acquire a company called Renergen in South Africa. And I think when you look at Renergen's business fit and our business fit, you put the two together, it's an incredible overlap, and we can create an industrial electronics gas powerhouse in the world that no one else can compete with. So that's super exciting as well. So that's our main achievements, what we do. I guess let's go straight to Q&A, Craig, because that's what everyone wants. So let's do that.
Absolutely, Paul. We are taking your questions now. To speak to Paul, you can click the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window. You may also click the Q&A button and type in your question. I will read it aloud and Paul will answer. And of course, you can always reach us by writing to ASPI@redchip.com. Paul, you have said...
Craig,
yes.
Normally I've been in a blazer. I apologize for my non-blazer outfit today. I was in Velcom down at Renergen today. I got back about 5 minutes ago. It's -10 down there. And we had a bit of a crazy plane landing, so I didn't get time to change into my normal attire for this presentation, but that's all good.
Thank you for that, Paul. Paul, you have said that you want to become a powerhouse in electronic gases. Can you talk more about this? How do you do this, and what is the market opportunity?
Yeah, so there's a number of things going on in enriched gases right now. So two of the main gases used in the production of a semiconductor is silane and germane. And when you think about semiconductor development over the last 50 years or so, Moore's law determined semiconductor development. So Moore's law said that a semiconductor will double in productivity or speed every 2 years. And that kind of law held until last year. And then they realized, or the world realized, we can't do much more than semiconductors with currently available materials. And so we've reached the 1 nanometer semiconductor, and we can't kind of go beyond that. To go beyond that, we need better materials. And we have silicon 28 and germane 70 that the market believes, or scientists believe, can increase the conductivity and the productivity of semiconductors thousands of fold and enable quantum computing, and AI, and other things in the future. And so that's something really unique to ourselves that we have, and no one else has. And because of our technology is so unique, we can enrich silane, which is the gas that semiconductors want to use, and we can enrich it and supply it to them. And we are enriching it today. And I think our first shipment will go, I'm guessing, next 4 to 6 weeks to a US customer. And no one else can do that. So to get faster semiconductors, we need these new materials: silicon 28, germane 70, barium 137, ytterbium 171, and we're probably the only company that can produce those. So that's the first thing, is we have a technology that no one else has. Secondly, if we combine, assume we combine with Renergen, we have access to a huge helium resource. And so when you look at what semiconductors need, you need helium, you need entrant gases, and we have the expertise to do fluorinated gases as well. You package that whole lot together, we've got an offering that no one else has. Okay, no one else has that. And that could allow us to become the absolute world's leader in electronic gases, which I would point out are the highest margin, highest return on capital, highest ROI businesses of all the industrial gas companies out there. And so to have a unique company with those attributes really excites me. And that's one of the reasons why we want this transaction to happen between the two companies. It's going to make an incredible company that no one else can contend against going forwards.
Second question, Paul, it's kind of a combination or a conflation of many questions we've been getting, and it's simply, why is helium exciting?
I'm not sure it's exciting. That's the right word, although I'm excited by it. So helium and uranium are quite similar in some regards. Okay, so let's take uranium as a starting point, and obviously we started off in uranium. Okay, so when you think about a nuclear reactor, they need to have enriched uranium. They have to have it. It doesn't actually matter what price they have to pay for it. They have to have it. Okay, if you've got a nuclear reactor and you haven't got uranium and you have to shut the reactor down, not only will there be riots on the street, everyone's lights turn off, okay, but you're costing millions of dollars a day to keep that reactor shut down, okay? That's cost of doing business in the nuclear fuel world, okay? Simple, okay? When you look at the semiconductor industry, you have to use helium in your fab to clean the fab and to get it ready for use, okay? If you haven't got helium and you have to shut the fab down, your loss every day, your economic loss every day is more than what you'd pay for a whole year in helium supply. Okay, so you have an incredible kind of demand with zero consensus around the price. Okay, so uranium, the reactor will pay whatever price they have to pay to get the uranium. They have to pay it. Okay, the same is true for helium. If I ask you, Craig, today how much you'd pay for a glass of water, it's probably not a lot. If you hadn't seen water for a week and I've got a glass and it's the only glass you're going to see in the next week, you'd pay a lot of money for it. You'd kill everyone in the way to get it. Okay, it's the same for both helium and uranium. They're incredible materials, and that's why I like them from a pricing standpoint.
Paul, you have previously guided to achieving revenue from the Silicon 28 line. Is that still on track for this month? If no, are there issues with reaching scale, as you previously indicated that commissioning and production seem to be going extremely well, yet we have seen nothing in terms of results thus far?
Yes, I'm not sure what you said in terms. I can't remember what you said in terms of timings and stuff. But 728 plant's going very well. It's running commercially. We're producing intermediate product. We'd expect to produce product in the next several weeks to send out to the customer. It is going really well. As with any startup of any plant, there are always problems. So some of the problems we encountered during the December, January timeframe was we couldn't, our cryogenic distillation columns want helium at negative 90 degrees C, actually 90 Kelvin, and we couldn't get to 90 Kelvin, we got to 930. We had to phone up the OEC supplier for the OEM supplier for the cryogenic pump, and we got down to 90 Kelvin, so that was fine. All these kind of problems happen, but right now the plant's going really well, and we'd expect to supply highly enriched silicon 28 in the next several weeks to the first customer, and it's looking very good indeed. It's an incredible plant. The engineers have done an amazing job building this plant in the time we've given them. It's 40 times the size of our carbon plant, and it's going great.
Can you discuss the terms on the TerraPower loan agreement? It appears that TP are loaning ASPI 20 million at what's effectively a 15% interest rate, using all of ASP's asset for collateral and requiring ASP to raise another 150 million in capital as part of the agreement, while offering zero in terms of commitment to ASP. This seems a far cry from your comments that TerraPower would pay for the Helium enrichment facility. Can you comment?
Yeah, so the exact numbers, I'd want the numbers in front of me before I exactly comment on them. But TerraPower basically paying a down payment for the plant, which will be secured on future fuel supplies. That down payment allows me to get about $150 million from other funders to fund the balance of the plant. Without their 20 million plus supply commitment, I wouldn't get the other funding for it. So from my standpoint, from the ASP standpoint or QLE standpoint, there's zero of our capital needed to build the plant. That means our return on capital is infinite, almost. And that's what I focus on most of all. And we like the deal. We think it's good for both parties. They get the fuel they need. We get the capital we would like to build the plant. We wouldn't build this plant for them without their capital, simply because it's a much lower return on capital plant versus other isotopes such as ytterbium, nickel, gadolinium. They're much higher return on asset plants we can build. So we wouldn't build this plant unless they were prepared to fund it. And so they've put the required level of funding for us to get external capital. They've agreed to an offtake agreement that protects the plant's pricing and material costs and so forth. So it's almost a risk-free play for ourselves. So we're pretty happy with it.
Please explain some of the synergies between Renergen and ASPI.
Yeah, so Renergen has a very large natural gas field about 3.5, 4 hours south of Johannesburg. I was there a few hours ago. I flew in tonight from there, and yeah, they have exceptionally low cost of energy, probably the second lowest cost of natural gas versus Qatar. Okay, so it's very, very low cost gas. And we use energy in our isotope production business. So the first obvious synergy is that we can put plants there and really reduce our cost of goods. I think by over 90%, maybe 95+% brings the cost of goods by, which is an incredible thing to do. Okay, and that would put us as the lowest cost producer of any isotope anywhere in the world. The second source of synergies is that we've run our company on a shoestring budget over the last 5 years. We don't have a lot of the infrastructure a company of our size should really have. We don't have a bricks and mortars HQ. Our finance department is one person. We don't have an IT department, no press communications department. Renergen has a lot of that stuff already. They've got a bricks and mortars HQ in Johannesburg, bricks and mortars HQ in Austin, Texas. They have 2 people doing IT, a finance team of 4, and so we can use a lot of that infrastructure. We need to grow into that infrastructure over the next several months anyway, because this gives us that infrastructure we would need. So that's fantastic. And finally, most important thing, some synergies, is actually our customer synergies. So, we'd like to become a major supplier of electronic gases over the next several years. I think we've got 2 of the most unique gases in the world, enriched silicon-28, enriched germane. No one else has those. So let's turn this into an electronics gas powerhouse, but I've also got helium and other gases that the world needs. So it's a one-stop shop for electronics customers to buy all their gas in one go. And Stefano Marani, who's the CEO of Renergen, he's going to become our CEO of our electronics and rocketry business. And he's based in Austin, Texas, and he knows all the customers there. And we were looking for a person to run that business, and we found that person. So it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Can you comment on Renergen's bankruptcy and their relationship with the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, or DFC?
So I don't believe they've gone bankrupt. I think we avoided them from going bankrupt by providing them a loan. So I think they are currently solvent on all their loans. They have a large loan from the DFC today for phase 1. They've got a much larger loan, about $500 million for phase 2 of the project coming due during the next several years. That loan would probably not have been available had they gone bankrupt. And that's one of the reasons why we're so keen to extend money to them to avoid them going bankrupt, is to make sure that loan stayed in place. Because that loan, that $500 million loan, at the kind of interest rates it's going to come at, is very valuable to us. And so my understanding and our belief is that they've not gone bankrupt, and we've prevented them from going bankrupt. And all the loans are currently in place and are fully, paid up and are fine in terms of status.
Paul, this also sort of conflates many questions we've been getting. Why you? Why ASP Isotopes? Why would TerraPower choose you to invest in your project?
So I think there's a couple of points there. So first of all, and probably not the most important point, is that we're operating in South Africa at a location called Pelindaba. Pelindaba is basically a plug-and-play location to build an enrichment facility. So to build an enrichment facility, you have to have all the permits and licenses in place. And to build a greenfield site in the United States, I'm going to guess will take at least 10 years and $500 million before you put a shovel in the ground. Okay, it would be an absolute nightmare, and we would not put our shareholders through that. I can assure you now. I'm the biggest shareholder. There's no way we'd do that. Okay. Pelindaba has basically most of the permits in place already. It's well known by the IEA. It comes under comprehensive safeguard agreements with the IEA. It's well known by all the regulators. Used to enrich, it stores enriched product already. I mean, it's a plug and play location to build an enrichment facility. That location, somewhere in the world, would take us 10 years to build. So that's, I think, reason number one. Reason number two is I think our technology is quite unique. And, Bill Gates is obviously the chairman of TerraPower. I'm not going to talk for him or on his behalf, whatever, but I think he and I probably have a similar view that to solve the climate crisis, what the world needs, America doesn't need more nuclear fuel, neither does Europe. It's the emerging markets that needs more nuclear fuel, because this is where energy demands are growing exponentially and where they're using coal today, and their only choice is to use coal today. And I think if you go to the emerging markets and you ask someone there, about their climate anxiety, and I'm told the teens of today in the Western world have climate anxiety. If you go to the emerging markets, ask about their climate anxiety, they will laugh at you, okay? Because they can't afford to feed themselves. They're hungry. And when I say they're hungry, doesn't mean they're missing dessert. They can't afford 7 meals a week. So they're not going to pay a premium to get green energy. They will pay the lowest price they can get to keep their lights on and feed their family. So unless we can make nuclear fuel or nuclear energy trade at a discount to hydrocarbon-based energy, they're not going to use it. Simple as that, okay? Simple as that. And so I think our technology, if we're successful, we have the potential to reprice nuclear fuel at a price point where, combined with a low-cost SMR, we can produce nuclear energy at a significant discount to hydrocarbon-based energy. And that's the only way we're going to solve the climate crisis, or whatever you want to call it, but whatever's happening in the world with global warming. And I think that's the second reason why they came with us. We have speed to market and unique technology. And I'm guessing no one else has that.
Can you provide more detailed information regarding the $300 million EBITDA target for 2030?
Yeah. Let's let the Renergen ASPI merger close first, and then we'll provide a waterfall to that during the second half of the year as to how we get there. But I'm a very cautious person. I wouldn't give out any form of guidance I wasn't totally convinced or sure we could hit with at least 100 or 2% spare room. So, but yeah, listen, it's a mixture of helium, energy, and isotopes. And I think if you built a model and you looked at what we're doing, I think you'd probably find you get there pretty easily.
I assume that since the definitive TP agreement, since the first investor event, there is more interest in this event versus the first event. With this in mind, how many institutions were at the first event and how many are committed to the event next week?
Well, I've no idea. So I think after the first event, the Fuzzy Panda report created a lot of interest. So I think we had maybe 30 investors for the first event. I think we've got a similar number for this event coming. I don't know. I'd have to check. I turn up and present. Other people deal with the numbers and what have you. But I mean, yeah, we're looking forward to it. We've always had the view that open transparency and communication is the best way to run a company. and giving people access to see what we do is the best way to also run a company. And so our goal is at least twice a year we have the opportunity for investors to come and see what we do in South Africa. It's a long way to come, not exactly down the road. And so, it takes commitment to come here and see what we do, but hopefully the investors who turn up agree it's worthwhile and they profit from it.
Couple of more geopolitical type questions for you, Paul. Is the Russian entity limiting supply of isotopes and/or is it limited by sanctions? It would seem the market is tight now. Do you agree?
No, I don't. Well, yes and no. So I don't believe there's ever been any sanctions on any isotopes from Russia since the war started. So, and there probably couldn't be because the war's totally reliant on them. There's only one supply of them. So I don't believe there's ever been any sanctions on that. Is the market tight? The market's always been tight, and there's always been a supply demand imbalance. And so that remains and gets worse as demand grows. And that's one of the reasons why I became interested in the industry 5 years ago, well before Russia invaded Ukraine, because I recognized just how tight the market was and how challenged the market was in terms of isotope supply. And I think that has remained. Our goal is to solve some of that supply side problems,
And second question, how are discussions going with other governments regarding uranium enrichment?
So if you had asked me 6 months ago, I'd have said very, very slowly, frustratingly. I've thrown myself off a cliff kind of slowness. But right now, actually, it feels pretty good. There's a lot of interest in what we're doing. I think other governments would rather we be closer to them than further away from them. I feel pretty confident we can get something done with another government in the next, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, maybe a bit faster. These things move the pace of a glacier around the river, but we'll see. But yeah, things are going pretty well, pretty well. Well, we'd like to have, we would like to have multiple plants in multiple locations. Ideally, one in North America, one in Europe, and one in the rest of the world. The obvious locations for those plants, one is the United States, one is in the UK, the other is in South Africa. And our goal is to progress all three of those as fast as possible to the market. Regulations, licensing, bureaucracy is generally the rate determining step here, not us building a plant. And actually, for the first time in 3 years, it feels like they're becoming less of a factor.
Is there concern of intervention by the U.S. government to prevent trade of critical strategic materials?
Well, not from what I can see, no. I think actually the US government wants more critical materials they don't have access to. And I think that's been witnessed many times with the deal of Ukraine. I think if you look at the press conference after the South Africa US meetings that took place in Washington, we said we're actually named as a company doing things in critical materials for the US. And we're a US company, and our goal is to bring critical materials to the United States. We made that very clear to the DOE and the US government. And I had the US Embassy with us this week in our plants, talking about what we're trying to do to bring more critical materials to the United States. And so that's our goal. And I think from what I can see, everyone in Washington is very happy with that, and they're encouraging it. And I'm going to assume there's a big wallet and balance sheet behind it to help us do it.
Since the executive order to open up nuclear development here in the United States, how do you see that speeding up ASP developing enrichment in the United States?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer. So, nuclear enrichment in the United States is governed by the NRC, and that's an entity that's designed to ensure nuclear safety. So to shake up that department, we'll need a hell of a shake up and a lot of muscle to do it. The NRC bill out by the hour, and so they're not paid for speed, they're paid for time. So that's a direct contradiction of what we want to happen to get more nuclear power to the world. So I don't know how that's going to play out. We're keen to come to the US. We're ready to come to the US. We're building the infrastructure to come to the US. I just recognize doing anything in the United States will take a long time versus doing something here in South Africa. And we will do whatever makes the highest returns for our shareholders. And that, in my view, is probably doing something in South Africa, short term, longer term USA. But listen, we'll see what happens. We're committed to come to the US. Just depends on what timeline, and that's out of our control.
What is happening with plans for a plant in Iceland?
Yeah, so Iceland's going very well. We haven't really spoken much about it recently, but I think we're almost ready to go. Our first plant in Iceland was going to be zinc 68, and we had a customer lined up for zinc 68, and we're ready to go. And then we realized quantum enrichment is actually a better way of enriching zinc 68. Our return on capital is probably 4 times as much, 5 times as much. And so we decided to do zinc 68 using quantum enrichment rather than ASP. So that leaves us with no plant to put into Iceland right now for ASP because zinc's gone to QE, quantum enrichment. Now we're probably going to do xenon 129 or methane or nitrogen in Iceland. So we've almost got all our final permits. The government's having to actually change their laws and regulations to allow us to build a plant there. They seem happy to do that. We're in no rush to do it because, as I say, we're going to get a much higher return on capital in our plants doing quantum enrichment. But we will build plants in Iceland. We've got a lease in our building secured. We've got I think a 20-year power agreement secured at 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So we're going to build those plants. We just need to work out what the first plant's going to be. I think if we built a large silicon plant in Iceland, our cost is going to drop to $1 or $2 per gram versus we're selling it right now at $500 a gram. So it really allows us to bring in the price dramatically and allow it to go into many different electronics. So we're definitely committed to going to Iceland. Just the question is, what's our first isotope to go there? It was going to be zinc. We found a better way of doing zinc, so we're still working through that first isotope.
If ASPI is the only one able to do this, when do you expect to sign more contracts for Silicon 28?
Well, I've got 5 or 6 supply orders, purchase orders sitting here right now. I think they want to see some product coming out first. So I'd expect in the next, 3-6 months, we sign a lot more.
Latest communications state that Silicon 28 will ship by the end of this month. Is that still the case? And who is it being shipped to? If not this month, then what is the reason for any delay?
Yeah, so I can't say it's being shipped to because we haven't disclosed that information, but it's a large US semiconductor company, and there aren't many of them. If it doesn't get shipped this month, it's just because of, delays and the normal stuff that happens with starting up plants and stuff. The plant's up and running. The first batch takes a long time to do, takes a long time to produce. We're not involved in the shipping of the product. The product is paid for our plant gates, and the customer involved in the shipping. So actually, when it ships, it's more upon the customer's side rather than our side. But if it doesn't ship this month, it'll be early July. It's looking very good. When we started that Silicon 28 plant up, I wasn't concerned about hitting 99.995% isotopic enrichment, I was concerned about maintaining 99.9999% chemical purity. And most people won't understand how pure that is. When you've got something that's 99.9999% chemically pure, you wait a minute and look at it, and it's 99.9998% chemically pure. Okay, failed to test. What we're seeing is the product goes into our plant, and it's going at 99.9999% chemically pure, and it's coming out at 99.99999% chemically pure. So it's improving in purity. And that to me is like, oh my God, that's great. That's a savior. So I'm very relaxed on silicon. It takes a while to produce that first batch. Any isotope does. Once you've built the intermediate inventory, subsequent batches are really quick, but it's looking great. And as I say, our customers desperate for it, so a couple more, and we're looking forward to shipping it.
Paul, why do you keep issuing equity if the shares are undervalued? Why did you sell shares the other day?
So, when you're so we issued equity about 10 days ago or so, I guess. And actually, we didn't need the equity, but we didn't need the cash. But having extra cash is always helpful. We can invest in high return projects. And, I think Nano Nuclear issued $100 million of equity on, I'm going to guess here, like the Wednesday or the Tuesday or Wednesday. And everyone expected us to issue equity. Everyone knew we were going to issue equity. Our share price wouldn't have moved higher until we'd issued equity. So my view is let's rip the band-aid off, issue some equity, the share price moves higher. Shareholders should be happy with that. And we had a single investor come in and say, we're one of, and they're a sophisticated investor who knows the industry very well, who wanted $50 million of equity right there, right now. And it's like, okay, we'll take it. And I think our share price will move higher. That should make our current shareholders happier. So our share price moves higher, and it actually makes our balance sheet stronger. And comes to stronger balance sheets, trade at higher multiples. Really simple. So, so that's the main reason why we issued equity. And also, we can use it. We need more equity in QLE. You're not going to build a $37 billion nuclear facility with $50 million of capital in your balance sheet. You need a bit more than that. And so we kind of solved that problem in one go. And then regarding me selling equity, my stock was sold on a 10b5-1 plan for tax reasons. When shares vest, I have to pay taxes on them, unfortunately. And so my 10b5-1 plan just takes care of that. It sells the required number of shares to pay taxes. I don't think the money even hits my bank account. It goes straight to the government, straight to the IRS. So yeah, and my answers to those two questions.
Silicon 28 could greatly improve the efficiency of solar power generation, as you stated in your letter to shareholders. Elon Musk recently said solar will eventually be the largest source of clean energy. Is there any interest from customers in this space?
Yeah, so I agree and disagree. I don't believe that solar will be the greatest form of energy. Elon's wrong there. Unfortunately for that, it only works 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. But it will be a useful form of energy. Certainly, using silicon 28 in a solar panel improves the efficiency. We've actually done those experiments with panels, and we can see it. It's a vast improvement. You have to bring the cost of silicon 28 down to a point where it makes sense. Okay, at $500 a gram doesn't make any sense. I think if we can build a plant in Iceland and collapse our cost of goods, then it makes real sense. Absolutely, yeah, totally.
Obviously, naming your clients brings great credibility to ASP. However, they may require secrecy. Do you see a time when a customer will allow you to name them? Do you see value in that?
Yeah, I don't really care. My job's to build a business, and that involves signing contracts. And if they're currently buying isotopes from Rosatom, they probably don't want to show Rosatom the middle finger until they've got isotopes from us. And so I totally understand why they don't want to be named in press releases. I've signed a few press releases recently where the other parties announced a deal with us, and we haven't been named, and I don't want to be named either. So it's very running this type of business is challenging, and we disclose what we think we need to disclose, and we don't disclose what we don't think to disclose. And certainly customers' names, unless they haven't been disclosed, we don't name them, and we wouldn't expect to be named in a customers press release either.
Thank you, Paul. We have so many questions. It's hard to find the very best ones for you. We have a ton of questions. And if we don't get to your question today, participants, you can always copy it and paste it into an email to aspi@redshift.com, and we'll make sure that Paul gets it and sees it. Paul, how confident are you that ASP Isotopes will be cash positive in 2025?
Yeah, so as we exit 2025, assuming we can start these 3 plants up successfully, and they're looking very good right now, or looking great, that should allow us to be cash flow positive during the latter half of 2025. Absolutely.
Can you give an update on the ytterbium production? When will next orders in silicon be expected?
Yeah, so ytterbium, right now, they're enriching, they're running 3 batches a week and in batch mode, and their annualized production will be about 300 grams a year. That's not, in my view, sufficient. So they will start continuous production in about July, and that should bring it up to about 1 kilogram a year. So that should allow our first commercial samples to go out during this Northern Hemisphere summer, and then commercial orders, just shortly after that, basically. It's looking great. They're going from 13% to 75% in a single step right now. It's looking good. It just takes a long time. This first building up the intermediate levels of enrichment just takes a long time, the first batch, and they're doing that right now. Second question was on silicon. Remind me of that, Craig, please.
Yes, just a moment here. He asked,
Is it timing or price or?
Yeah. Could the questioner please resubmit that second question, please? Thank you very much. There is just a slew of questions here.
Let's go on to the next one. Craig, we can go over 10 minutes. It's not a problem. It's almost midnight here now. It's 10 minutes.
Absolutely. Yes. With all of the interest today, there's no doubt about it. We're going to keep this thing going. Yes, and try to field as many of your questions as possible. Paul, when is the vote for the Renergen acquisition, and will QLE spinoff follow shortly thereafter?
Yeah, so there's 2 votes for the Renergen transaction. The first is in the last week of June, and that is on the loan agreement between ourselves and them. The second is in early July, I think around July 7th, plus or minus a day. And that's on the shareholder vote. Now, we'd expect both to go in our favor. If they don't, the outlook for Renergen is they're going to have to do a rights issue or some from a capital raise. And I'm going to guess it's a pretty horrible price. And most shareholders probably don't want that. And we've already got irrevocable support from over 35%, I'm thinking even more like 40, 45 now, of their shareholders for the transaction. They all see the industrial logic for the transaction. They see the synergies. They want to help create a global leader in electronic gases going forwards. And so I'm very confident we'll get the vote. But, we haven't got it yet. So let's get it first before we start talking about plans afterwards. And what's your second question there, Craig?
Yeah, the second question that we didn't get to was, when will next orders in silicon be expected?
Oh yeah, I've got tons of inquiries and what have you. I'd expect probably not in the second calendar quarter, third calendar quarter this year is my guess.
Thank you, Paul. Now that you have a few plants up and running, have the operational requirements been standardized? Hours of operation, staffing, maintenance, etc.
Last 3 years have been hell. So, I mean, you know, yeah. When we acquired the assets 4 years ago, I wasn't expecting to spend half my time here in South Africa. Yeah, we've had a lot of adult supervision has been needed to get these plants to where they are today. Myself and Robbie, our CEO, have done that. We've been here between us the whole time, getting it done. Things finally feel like they're working here kind of okay, or well, actually. And but that doesn't mean we can relax. We've still got a lot to do, a lot of work to do. In terms of standardizing hours and stuff, our plant employees work pretty standard hours, and our plants are the shifts, and so that's pretty standard. And our workforce is, I would say, very competent, and I think the best in the world, quite frankly. I mean, 20% of our employees have got PhDs, half have got advanced degrees. We've had US companies come out here and meet them, and they've responded saying, "Oh my God, your engineers could do half what we want to do in half the time or quarter of the time." And so I feel we've got a great workforce here now. It's taken us 3 years to build it. It's been 3 years of pain, blood, and sweat. We've got there, and I feel pretty happy with where we are right now.
Where will the feedstock for the TerraPower uranium enrichment come from?
Yeah, there's two types of problem. My problem is someone else's problem. That's someone else's problem. So TerraPower and ourselves will find the feedstock for it. We don't know yet. We've got a period of time to find that feedstock, and we're confident we can do it. We know most of the largest uranium traders in the world. We've already had offers for it, so we'll find it. But we haven't secured it or ordered it yet. I think that's going to be the least of the problems in building and supplying uranium.
Thanks, Paul. Any expected timeline for the Renergen deal to close?
Yeah. So the debt vote takes place last week of June. I think the shareholder vote takes place around July 7th, maybe plus or minus a couple of days. I think we will list on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, I believe, in the second week of August, and then the deal will close the third week of August. And within a few days, those dates are defined. And so, assuming nothing untoward, that's how it happens.
Following up on your point earlier, you mentioned that there could or would be isotope plants built at the Renergen site, assuming the vote is positive. Can you state what current fuel costs are per MCFV? Sorry, don't know that one.
So I'd rather do an MMBTU, which is my measure of energy cost. So wellhead gas costs at Velcom, where our Renergen plants is, about 35 cents per MMBTU. That's probably, in my view, that's the second lowest cost of gas on planet Earth after Qatar. Maybe there's a few places cheaper in Eagleford, but it may be, but not in large quantity. So we're pretty excited about putting second lowest cost of gas isotope plants they can make a lot of money for investors. So yeah.
Lots of questions about Quantum Leap Energy. They boil down to this, Paul. Expected timeline for the spinoff and just general updates on the QLE spinoff.
Yeah, so the plan is to spin it out during the second half of the year. Listen, largely out of my control. Depends a lot upon the SEC, Nasdaq. If I could choose a window, I would choose like the first couple of weeks of October. But clearly, it's out of my control. But that's when I would target it. Maybe it's second, some point around that window. We're going through the process right now. We need to hire a CEO for QLE. We've hired that person. We'll announce that person fairly soon. I think I wrote the press release earlier today, and hopefully that'll come out soon. And then we need to put in place infrastructure. We've done a lot of work on QLE that we haven't announced, haven't talked about, and so we'd like to put that stuff out there so everyone can see what we've done. QLE will not just be an enrichment company. It will be involved in all parts of the nuclear fuel supply chain. And we'll put that that program and lay it out when we're ready to, between now and the spin out. And I look forward to doing that. But there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes. We haven't really spoken about it much. But yeah.
You addressed this earlier, I know, Paul, but people are continuing to ask about it. Is there any reason why you discounted the direct offering so deeply instead of having the investor buy at market price? Otherwise, wouldn't it have been better to use the ATM for shareholders overall?
When a single strategic investor comes in and says, we want to buy $50 million off your shelf right now at like a 10% discount, to me, that's pretty fair. We can argue over it should be 8% or 12% or whatever. I mean, it's like cutting your toenails to lose weight. So just take it and get on with it. It was a good investor. We wanted them on our register. We've known them for a long time. So let's take it and move on. I'm not going to spend 10 hours a day working out how to nickel and dime every cent out of it. I am here to run a business rather than nickel and dime every cent out of the share price. And if we run the business correctly, the share price goes up multiple folds, not like a few cents. That's how we run the business.
Okay, Paul. We've been going at this for a while. Need to wrap this one up. We've
basically 7 more minutes. She said then make it a full hour. That's a record.
We'll do it then. All right, here we go.
Let's do it.
With all this talk about demand in all of ASPI's segments and ASPI's uniqueness in being able to deliver, when would you expect to sign additional contracts? And are there any revenue targets for 2026 that you are working toward?
So I've got internal 2026 revenue targets working towards. I'm not going to communicate them externally right now. But they're, each business unit has to hit certain milestones and targets. And so I look forward to doing that. And signing more contracts. We're negotiating lots of contracts all the time. And we've probably got 5 or 10 in the hopper right now. We're talking to people about,
More questions about the QLE spinoff. This person wants to know, will it involve any dilutions, and would there be a new IPO?
Yeah, so we're not planning on IPOing it. I think the IPO market is pretty challenging right now. So I'm going to do probably a direct listing is my base case, but there's other options as well. There can be reverse merger, a listed entity, a SPAC. But I think direct listing to me makes the most sense. Let's see what happens September, October time.
Will you only be producing HALEU for TerraPower through 2035? Is there opportunity to partner with other SMR companies such as Oklo or Rolls-Royce to build additional plants during this time frame?
Yeah, so Rolls-Royce probably not. So my understanding is Rolls-Royce need LEU rather than HALEU. It's unlikely to want to partner with us for that. With other SMR companies, absolutely. Would I expect to only produce TerraPower between now and 2035? No. We're talking to other companies, and I'd expect to sign additional agreements and get more clarity on other production pathways between now and the QLE spin out, basically. So you got a better idea of the business book and the layout of the business. But we'll announce them when we're ready to announce them, rather than as and when we're ready.
When do we get an update on the contract between ASPI and QLE for how the relationship will work after the spinoff?
So the relationship and structure we put in place is already valid after the spinoff. We will likely change that contract, though. Right now, we own both sides of the contract because right now the contract is based on dollars per kilogram produced, so a percentage of top line revenue. And if QLE was acquired by an SMR company or another entity, that may not be an appropriate measure to measure the royalty on. So we will likely change the measure to a dollar per kilogram, as opposed to a percentage of revenues produced, to protect ASPI in the event that QLE is acquired by an SMR company. And obviously QLE is in discussions with lots of SMR companies who need HALEU. It's a very strategic asset. There's obviously the risk that happens, and so we would protect ourselves against that happening.
Thank you very much, Paul. What happens to the ASPI shorts when the QLE subsidiary is spun out? Will the 17 million share ASPI short interest also be short the QLE subsidiary shares once QLE is spun out? How would they cover except in the open market?
Yeah, that's someone else's problem. So, yeah, I think if you're short a share of ASPI, when we spin it out, you're short a share of ASPI and you're short a share of QLE. And the only way to cover is to buy in the marketplace.
For the South African HALEU plant, what will the nameplate capacity be, and would it cover more than TerraPower's yearly contracted demand?
Yeah, I think we said nameplate capacity is 15 metric tons a year. I can't talk about TerraPower's demand because that's obviously confidential between the two parties. Well, obviously, they need that 15 metric tons for their own needs. I feel very confident we could quadruple the size of that plant and find customers for it. It's a drop in the ocean with regards to what's needed. And we'll obviously be looking to expand the size of that plant. But, this is not the easiest of industries to expand plants and what have you.
Back to QLE. Will ASPI own any QLE after the spinoff?
Yeah, I don't know. That's more of a tax question rather than for me. That determination will be made, I'm guessing, during the August-September timeframe. So we will spin QLE out in the most tax-efficient manner for shareholders, with the ideal of us owning none of it afterwards. So it's entirely spun out. We will spin out as much as we can and make it tax efficient for shareholders. I'm the biggest shareholder, so I'll do whatever's in my wallet's best interest, with the least tax payable. And that's what, and I'm guessing most shareholders agree with that. And so we'll do whatever's in the best interest of shareholders.
Okay, Paul. Now with my outro here, we're going to be at about an hour. So why don't we wrap up here? We did have one final question, Paul. This person has been very desirous to know. Are the Chinese mining the dark side of the moon?
I have no idea. I don't know much about China or the moon, but if they are, good luck to them. I'll have to go there one day and see it.
We've had several people write in thanking you for your time, Paul. Thank you very much for going over time.
Thank you for your interest. And as I say, we value openness and transparency, and we're very keen to have investors come and visit us, and keen to explain what we're doing. It's an unusual industry. It's an opaque industry. What we do sometimes, to me, kind of baffles me. It's like, what we're doing here, and the world needs more of this, and we're hoping to solve a huge supply chain problem in the world. And it's great to have so much interest in what we're doing. And I look forward to our company delivering what we said we're going to do over the next several months, and solving a real supply chain problem for the world, and helping enable so many technologies the world needs in the future. So thank you for your interest.
Thank you, Paul. For more information on ASP Isotopes, again, you can email us at aspi@redship.com, or you can always call us at 1-800-REDSHIP. Please visit the